Okay, so I genuinely had like 3 different ideas for videos this month, and my mental health and lack of a job and dwindling money and other stuff. So I'm making this video now because I've been playing Crisis Core, the original one on the Sony PC, on the Sony PSP. I went into kind of expecting to not like it. Sorry, fans, and lo and behold, it's not really good. It's a little bit bad, in fact. However, I'm not one to just make like takedown videos apropos of. I want to say nothing, but like Crisis Core Reunion is coming out. It's bad, but it's fascinatingly bad. Okay. Now, before going into this, I think it's a fair thing to point out that I have not consumed the entirety of the FF7 Extended Universe canon, particularly because I didn't have a phone and was living in Japan at the time of Before Crisis, or the Dirge of Cerberus interlude, I think. I have played FF7 Remake and Dirge of Cerberus, which is pretty close to just like naive camp in the series, and it's kind of a precious mess, actually, kind of like. And now I've finished Crisis Core for the Sony Pispis Mau Mau, but I do have a friend who has consumed literally everything out of the FF7 EU, and that fact has dealt untold psychological harm to me, so like, God knows what it's done to him. And it means that I've seen bits and pieces of the OVAs. I did rewatch Advent Children recently and forgot most of it all over again. Why does Tifa lose that fight? No one gets Tifa, I swear to God. All of this is to say that expanding the lore and world of FF7 has never really appealed to me, and every attempt I've seen of doing so has kind of made everything worse. This isn't an ideal place to come from when going through a game, and luckily, remarkably, I didn't end up just flatly hating it. That's why I make these videos. I don't just make like a video about something I hate. I'm not that kind of person. The issue isn't that I definitely hate some parts of this game. Of course not. The problem is that the parts I don't hate are actually kind of great. I don't know. I think part of it is really that I like Kingdom Hearts. Okay, so Kingdom Hearts is actually pretty good. It's a nightmare, in a sense, because capitalism is hell, and this game series has gotten more and more like one big ad campaign for Disney, which is very damning for a series that already started kind of as an ad campaign for Disney. But I am, despite everything, a fan of the series. It's excellent corporate fan fiction. And I know that like deep cut fans of my channel know that I'm on record calling literally the shortest Kingdom Hearts game my favorite, but I counter-argue that liking Fragmentary Passage is almost more honestly liking Kingdom Hearts than any other game in the series, because it's a game that's trimmed almost all of the Disney fluff away out from our melodramatic anime kids, which is, what I and, let's face it, most fans are actually here for. I stubbornly refuse to believe that like people genuinely love this series based entirely on it retelling every Disney film, but poorly. Kingdom Hearts, as it's been tied to Tetsuya Nomura's name, is a series built almost entirely out of big, sweeping sentimentality. It's like raw melodrama embedded in Disney World, and it's great. And people can laugh about it being anime and ridiculous, and about like light and darkness and friendship. And wait, I actually can quote the website. Kingdom Hearts is the story of... hold on. Kingdom Hearts is the story of light overcoming darkness with the power of friendship. That's actually fine, though. Like, your fun, E-rated fanfic about a magic boy and his growing list of sad friends hitting each other with big, blocky magic key sticks doesn't need to be, like, secretly fucked up and mature and grim, partly because, and it's important to say this, I'm sorry, Kingdom Hearts is dark. It's not dark in the, like, you killed your rivals, Radicate dark. No one's secretly been dead the whole time or whatever. It's dark in the way that it's a series built perpetually around longing. There's not a single game in Kingdom Hearts that ends with just a pure triumph, with everything resolved, everyone happy, and peace fully and truly restored, except kind of Kingdom Hearts 2, and even then they teased a new adventure right around the corner. I don't really know. Little bits of melancholy linger in these games forever, built around a potent, dare I say, simple and clean longing, I'm sorry. At its heart, these are stories revolving around, like, 3 youths who end up going on a journey that drifts them further apart from each other, and they come back at times, they reunite, but it is in that longing that the series keeps pulling people in, the feeling of losing people important to you, and to set this against a really childishly, like, simple fable about light overcoming darkness with the power of friendship makes this effective. It's actually fine to write a story that goes for kind of sweet sentimentality. Keep that in mind for now, because that is the heart of the narrative in Crisis Core. Zack Fair is a cheery, goofy guy who wants to be a hero, wants to be a soldier first class, is friends with tough guy Angeal and his theater kid named, I kid you not, Genesis, and Sephiroth, work friend edition guy Zack talks to on the phone. Anyway, he goes on an assignment in Wutai, the country Shinra's been at war with. He finds out that Genesis and his good friend Angeal's gone missing, so he goes to Benora with Song. Song, the guy who's gonna kidnap Aerith and help drop the Sector 7 plate in Final Fantasy 7. I'll get to that later, I'm sorry. Where you find Angeal's mom, get a big speech about what the Buster Sword, the starting weapon for Cloud, God, I still gotta stop with these interruptions, represents. Genesis is falling apart. He goes rogue, attacks Shinra with monsters, Angeal helps you fight Genesis, but also runs off. You track them both down, fall down a hole, meet Aerith, go on a date, track down Genesis again, kill him but not really, find Angeal, kill him but not really, get his sword, another date with Aerith, you team up with Cloud and work associate Sephiroth to go to Nibelheim, featuring Tifa in this, Sephiroth goes mad, you fight, Cloud kills him, but not really, you drag Cloud out of Nibelheim after being in test tubes for a while, 4 years? 4 years. Have a final epic showdown with the theater kid, and kill him, but not really, get to Midgar, die, roll credits. There's nothing really wrong with this story, actually. Zack spends the entirety of the game being a good guy, trying to do nice things, have a girlfriend, save his companions, be a hero, and is ultimately used and consumed by the system he has dedicated the last length of this game of his life for. And all the kind of trite conversations about monsters, angels, the theater quotes, it's all very sentimental, very Nomura, very Kingdom Hearts. You see, it's all come together. I think it's actually kind of important to really highlight the high points of the game, because the emotional beats are definitely there. I did, all cards on the table, get kind of choked up in the final few sequences with Zack giving all of his catatonic and dead pals apples and trying to have a little moment together. And again, in the final sequence, it knows how to play to your emotions well. And yeah, I even like Theater Kid Genesis. It's obnoxious that he's made a mountain out of an incredibly trivial part of Final Fantasy VII, but that's kind of Crisis Core's mission altogether. We'll get to that also. But I like it. I like that he's kind of an obsessive weirdo and everyone's a little annoyed about it, and that it's a weird quirk at first, and it just gets more uncomfortable as it goes on, and it kind of feels good watching him obsess more and more and lose himself to madness. I don't know. It works for me. You can cut around this game's worst offenses and tell a pretty good movie about what happened in this game, but there are problems, and those problems can get thorny pretty quickly. So let's start with the least bad part: missions. So missions are actually weirdly important to talk about, which is odd because it's largely optional content. You don't really ever have to do missions unless you like running through the same handful of dungeons over and over and fighting enemies with big HP numbers. It's the kind of bad game design decision that I think is the most forgivable. You want people to play your game a lot, I get it, but the story's on the short side and it's hard to get to level 99 or 100 or whatever the max level is, especially if, for example, you make it so that you level up through RNG alone, though who would do such a thing? It's a very old school tedium that actually reminded me of a very specific Kingdom Hearts game. 358 and a half days. I know that's not how you're supposed to say the game title. Please just shut up. It's part of the game that early on I found kind of nice. Each mission line sort of had a little mini plot going on. It really amped up the Kingdom Hearts vibes of the whole game. And because there's I don't know, 300 or something of them, you can just kind of lose yourself in grinding out missions and forget that there's a massive looming problem just around the corner, but I'm still in my mechanics part of the video, so let's look instead at the one problem that missions can't hide from you: the combat. The combat is actually kind of a perfect microcosm of my struggle with this game, because the combat is, on the barest of bones, kind of interesting and fun. You have a guard that I barely used, a dodge roll that I use all the time because you can just dodge an attack entirely, a basic attack, a bunch of attack, magic, and support material to pick from to diversify your attack portfolio, and it's a fun balance. Having only one party member can help heighten everything, so the action RPG style of things really feels satisfying and fun when you get to play it. In a lot of cases, you're going to be sitting around this screen pops up. This is the DMW. I don't care to look up the full name of it. And it semi-regularly yells modulating phase at you, and you have to like sit and wait for the slot machine to either do nothing, show a few images and do nothing. Rarely it will play a little clip show of footage I've never seen anywhere else in the game and do nothing, or it will give you one of like 7 attack moves, show some images and give you one of 6 attack moves, play a clip show of footage I've never seen anywhere else in the game and give you one of 6 attack moves, swap to your summoning slot machine and proceed to either do nothing, dispense one of your summons, or if you're missing a summon, you have a chance of it giving you one of those attack moves from the previous roulette anyway, but only Chain Slash, the one that you get when you roll someone that you haven't met yet, or it'll swap you to the Chocobo slot machine where either it'll do nothing or summon one of the critters you found. I only ever found Chocobo, so I don't really know about the others. All of this happens, again, semi-regularly, interrupting everyone's combat so we can sit around and look at parts of the game again. Oh, and also later Genesis can show up in your slot machine, and in this one fight, he did that, and it soft-locked my game after I had my first game over against this boss, and learned from that loss that the cutscenes are unskippable, so I got to watch Zack say,
"No way. He just ate my hair."
3 times in a row. This is kind of a metaphor, you see. The combat by itself is fine, at times kind of fun and reactive and easy to get into, but then it has to remind you how cool it is. And remember Final Fantasy VII? It just can't get past itself and how important and weighty and meaningful its lore is that it bogs the fun parts of the game down. Hey, wouldn't that suck if it did the same thing to the story? So there's a lot of ways to take this particular problem, and the least interesting and most petty is to get upset about how many little things the game decides to attribute to Zack. Did you know that Zack made the hole in the church that Cloud falls through? Did you know that he named Tifa's bar? Did you know that he told Aerith to sell flowers? Did you know that you can fight Sephiroth at least 4 times? These are whatever, like trivial little retcons and lore dumps that don't super matter. The bigger issue here is that it bafflingly commits the prequel sin. So you all remember the movie Solo? I'm contractually obligated to never talk about Star Wars in public, so I'll be brief before my CIA handler, deep sixes me. Okay, Han Solo in Episode 4 is the guy with this kind of heavy, sordid past. He's done all sorts of things. He stole the Millennium Falcon, he swindled Jabba the Hutt, he did the Kessel run in Parsec? I don't know, I never played that game. But the point is that these events characterize him as this kind of character with a scummy, rich past to help be a good counterpart to Luke's relative naivete. Then they made Solo, and decided that it was just going to be a movie where every cool thing he brags about in the original trilogy is just done back to back to back. Like it flattens the character from someone who has this kind of ambiguous, rich past into a character bragging about a particularly wild, week or so of stuff he did all at once. So, to Crisis Core, these big pieces of the story are made weird and kind of strange when Zack, why did I write that line? When Zack, Aerith's boyfriend, has 2 on-screen dates with her and then vanishes forever, which sucks particularly because that particular story is actually dramatic and compelling and heartbreaking. I got teary-eyed when she wrote him a bunch, and he'll never reach her. I don't know, that's good shit. Until you remember that Aerith talks about Zack in Final Fantasy VII in such reasonable terms as just her, ex-boyfriend. Not a guy that she was always kind of considering maybe being in a relationship and then wrote him 89 letters and never saw him again. And the counter to that is also worse. The Buster Sword is Cloud's starting weapon, and sure, it's sentimental to consider that he got it from Zack, but the Buster Sword has a neat little mechanical flair to it in the original game, where, it's a cool sword, but you can steal from a 3rd-class soldier early on in the game for a better one, and that's good. FF7 is clever in how it's using its mechanics to tell you the true story before you have it told to you. But now, the Buster Sword is Angeal's family's legacy left to Zack, who dies and passes the torch to Cloud through a sword that may genuinely be the reason why the FF7 Remake's weapon system is the way it is, so that you could theoretically use the Buster Sword as an endgame weapon. This is all stuff that didn't need to be expounded on to get a rich, full experience out of Final Fantasy VII, so it's courting an audience that wants more out of these characters, but what we got out of Zack, like, on the small scale, it kind of makes a lot of Aerith's dialogue about how similar Cloud is to him in Final Fantasy VII, which is already kind of weird from the limited scenes with Zack. Much, much weirder, because Zack is basically adult Sora in this game, where Cloud spends the majority of Final Fantasy VII being kind of a stoic know-it-all. On the grander scale, his character feels awkward, like it's trying to be fit into every possible hanging thread and inconsistency, because it's hard to make a character whose role was to try and fight Sephiroth fail and rescue Cloud out of Hojo's experiments before dying before getting back to his girlfriend. Like, Cloud's final moments with Zack in Crisis Core are emotionally very good. They hit pretty hard, but it feels unearned because they tried to deepen his past friendship with Cloud, but they kind of just couldn't. Like, he and Cloud went on a mission in Modeoheim, where he learns that Cloud is from Nibelheim, and...
Me? Gungaga.
And then they do the Nibelheim mission together. Like, it has, like, the bones of being able to make a kind of casual acquaintance into something deeper through tragedy, but it's hard to put it all together. It was a little hazy and unclear how things wound up the way they are in the original game, too. But to have this big, tearful, profound goodbye wedged in there, too, at best feels a little tonally wild, and at worst feels openly manipulative. Like, they knew that people would be sad because Cloud, gets blood on his face and looks sad and screams and vows to never forget him, and we know, hardcore fans of Final Fantasy VII, that Cloud absolutely will forget him in, like, a few minutes, but none of the beats line up well. Like, it banks too hard on the player's nostalgia to be its own game, and it's too much of its own game by necessity, because it's a prequel to a world that made compromises with its own lore in order to tell a better story. And I guess that's all I have to say about it. Thank you so much for watching. It's nice to clear the air about Zack and the cool electric company he works for that really did nothing wrong until they hunted him down for kind of no reason. Wait, what? So, I left a lot off the table in my complaints for a sinister reason, which is that my actual biggest complaint about this game, and the thing that is the most fundamentally troubling about it, is that it absolutely reeks of corporate meddling. Do you all remember when Squaresoft made a game about an evil corporation that was killing the planet, and that we needed to stop them, and that their efforts to gain more power and control and money set them on a path to turning people into shattered monsters of themselves, and led to one of them bringing about a world-terminating catastrophe? Well, have you considered that at least one of those people is Girl, who be nice to you? Zack works for Shinra, and at the top of the game, he talks about making it to first class and becoming a hero, and it's fine, and more interestingly, it's actually even fine that our main character has this kind of naive, romantic ideal about his job. People do that, and a story about someone who has to learn about being a cog in a horrible, unjust machine makes for a nice story. But they never really play that card, and I mean, really, like Shinra is responsible on a large scale for everything that goes wrong in this game. But the framing of it is constantly shying away from that. Rufus or his dad never show up. Scarlet, Heidegger, Palmer, Reeve never show up. The faces of Shinra you get to meet is your soldier buddy Kunzel, Director Lazard, who's generally pretty nice, and then he turns into Angeal at the end of the game, and then he dies in a pretty good scene. Your friend Angeal, Theater Kid Genesis, who uses a bunch of clones for you to fight in most of your battles, but it's all framed as his own actions in collaboration with the mad scientist Hollander, who's gone rogue and has to be stopped, and work associate Sephiroth, who you chat with on the phone every now and then before he goes mad. There's also Song, the guy who's gonna kidnap Aerith and help facilitate the dropping of the Sector 7 plate, killing everyone in that part of the slums. But he's your pal, and he watches over Aerith, and that's kind of seen as like a goodish thing here. And of course, Cisne, the Turk from before Crisis, which I've never played, who is here for a bit, then shows up again in a swimsuit, then helps Zack escape, then fails to track him down before he dies. It's all just like a little bit tragic, but it's also shyly taken off the actual villainy in the story. Genesis has gone mad. Hollander is trying to make some kind of sick experiment. Sephiroth has gone mad. Zack and Cloud escape Hojo's experiments and are branded as escaped subjects, so Shinra has to track them down. And it's just never being upfront with us. It wants to paint the picture of Shinra as a place full of good, friendly faces, people putting their jobs and lives at risk to help you while bad things kind of just happen, Shinra shoots Zack down at the end with nothing meaningful to transition us from Zack, first-class soldier, to Zack, criminal on the run. Because if they did that, if they actually said that this place Zack wholly believed in, the place his friends worked at, the place Cisne and Song and Kunzel and Angeal devoted so much of their lives to, was so callous, so disinterested in him as a person, compared to him as an investment opportunity, like that would be a potent story. But it would mean that maybe this massive corporation is rotten and unjust. There would be no honor as soldier to hold on to, and they didn't want to, or maybe even couldn't, tell that story. The story of these people who have devoted themselves to something that turned out to be an illusion of honor, that they fought and suffered and died for a comfortable corporate lie. Zack has to have his pride and his honor unquestioned, so he dies beautifully, taken to heaven on Angeal's wing, so we can revel in the cathartic tragedy of it all without it being burned into our skulls, that we watched a man die for capitalist propaganda, the true, actual tragedy of Crisis Core, the one unwritten. Like Loveless itself, I guess. Special thanks to Alexi Angelica, Caitlin Fisher, Colleen T., Dr. A., the Dr. William Schreiber Memorial Medical Center, Lewis Wells, Lo Rez, Maria Aladren, Alistair V., Natalie Lane Baker, Naraya the Redmarked, Professor Bopper, Saint Robbery, Thomas Vulpez, and Zetetic. Thank you all so much.